Well, we're doing our usual Monday stream. I think it was this weekend. It might have been Friday that we got our first picture of Supergirl on the set of the Flash movie that's coming out next year. And that costume looked way worse than I thought it would. Um, I'm not going to post any links. You can look it up. Just type in Supergirl Flash movie. It's like a red top part with all blue at like this like blue bodysuit, and like even the shoes are blue because it's a common thing where costumes for members of the super family, at least for Superman and Supergirls, to have red boots. Even the boots are blue. And then apparently it's going to be some CGI cape and some CGI belt. It looks terrible, and it sucks because when she was announced for the film, I was excited because we haven't had Supergirl in the movie in what 20 years. Whenever that '84 film came out, uh, so it was really disappointing. And people were saying even the CW costume, which is on a show that has a much tinier budget, looks better than that. And that should be saying something. I had no idea that costume would look that bad. Oh my god. Hopefully, I hope the actor or actress rather plays the character well. Um, but I had no idea that that costume would just be as dreadful as it is. Like that costume actually kind of looks like, and people were bringing this up, the Superior Spider-Man costume, like how it's like red at the top and then black at the like for the bottom parts. So it's like that costume except blue where the black is. And then people were like defending, it's like, why does she have to? Why can't she have pants? Because now we live in the era where apparently there's like big debates over what do you call it? What specific type of attire a female character is wearing. Um, like I said, even the CW costume, like I have problems with that show, but the initial costume, I don't like the pants one because it looks a little goofy to me. But even that one looked better than the one for this big budget film. Man, it really sucks because the character of Kara, like the original Supergirl's probably, I'd argue, a more interesting character than Superman because in the comics, again, not referring to the CW show, you can take that and throw it in the trash, but in the comics, she is known to be more brutal in combat than he is, and he has to like restrain her and like temper her and tell her to not act in such an aggressive manner. And it's like this really good contrast of him being this person who's lived on Earth his whole life versus someone who's still adapting to the various norms and like the fact that people are not as strong as Kryptonians are. So I think it's so sad that a character as interesting as her um usually is reduced to just kind of like with the CW show she's just the Superman clone, and then with this film we don't even know if that is Kara. That could be some other version of Supergirl because they won't say which one it is. I just I just know whichever one it is, they got a raw deal from the costume department. Man, I really thought they were just gonna probably use, I don't know, like maybe some kind of female version, because I know a lot of these modern films just hate like feminine attire. Like they always don't like it when women have clothes that like highlight how attractive they are. So I was thinking at worst they would just give her a costume that looks very identical to the Man of Steel costume. And this one's even like, oh my god, that thing is terrible. They couldn't even make the boots red. It looked like she was running around in like a onesie with a CGI cape. Damn, that thing is bad. Like, go look it up. It looks like complete trash. The only thing I'm looking forward to in that movie is Michael Keaton coming back after 29 years as Bruce Wayne. Because he probably, like, I like him and Bale pretty much equally, but I think Warner Brothers is really missing a prime opportunity to make a Batman Beyond film or like trilogy if they wanted to. Because I think he'd do a really good job if he were allowed to play in that same Burton universe, but 40 years later. That'd be funny if they made Tim Burton's Batman 3 like a cartoon film where like all the actors reprise their voices and then they just like count that as the third one, then make a Batman Beyond. But they won't do anything like that because they like their weird other stuff that they do. People were actually pointing out on Twitter that like more people are excited to see Keaton as Batman again in a Flash movie than Flash himself. Like no one's talking about Flash in his own movie. That's terrible. What's better, Piccolo versus 17 or Piccolo versus Frieza? Um, Probably Piccolo versus 17 because at least with that fight, there's like an organic reason it doesn't end with Piccolo defeating 17 because they're both evenly matched, and then Cell intervenes versus, oh, let me just turn into one of my other forms I have sitting in the back door. We need to make a list of like the worst costumes ever in live action. That thing looks atrocious. A lot of times when you trash these outfits, they like to go like, "Oh, you have a problem with the actress." I'm like, no, I don't care that she doesn't have blonde hair. I think if they're trying to have her as Kara, she should have blonde hair. But whatever. It's just I don't. I think that costume looks terrible. But did you see the costume for Supergirl in the Flash movie? I couldn't believe it. I was so disturbed. I was like, how does this $1 million, $1 billion studio end up making something looks like that? Thoughts on Super 17 in GT? What thoughts am I supposed to give? He was a character that had no personality, that just sat in one corner of Earth fighting a bunch of characters that didn't even get to do anything in that whole show, and then getting defeated. Like nothing comes out of that arc that is remotely interesting, other than Cell and Frieza talking to Goku, and then 18 having like 2 seconds of actually being able to do something that contributes to the plot. I'm watching another stream about it right now. I really thought that was like a fake picture when I first saw it because it just didn't look like something I would expect from people with that much money. Like I've seen fan costumes that look better than that. And it's not to trash fans, because fans do like to do stuff that's dedicated to whatever their craft is, but usually they don't have as many resources. So that's the point that like this studio that had all these resources made a costume that looked like something, again, that you would it's worse than the CW costume, and they have way less money. That thing was terrible. The fake abdominal muscles on the suit look goofy. No, somebody said it looks like she has a bunch of eggs like tied underneath the outfit. Dude, it sucks. Supergirl has so many good looking like comic costumes. Like you have the blue one with the red skirt and like the red boots. Then my favorite one, which is the white shirt with the white gloves and the blue skirt. Like all kind of different outfits that look good, but they're like, we need to be realistic. That was always the thing I hated the most about these films. Like they're so desperate to be realistic that they kind of like miss the point of how you have a fantasy world where aliens come from other planets. You want to talk about realism? Yeah, white shirt, white gloves. Yeah, that's the one that was used in Superman the animated series. That costume had the same problem that Harley Quinn's original costume had, where it's like this really good like look, and then these stupid artists and writers feel like they have to modernize everything, so they just throw them out. They're like, oh, this is from 20 years ago. We can't use that anymore. But that's why I said it looks like if you know what the Superior Spider-Man outfit looks like, it's literally that costume with an S logo and then with blue instead of black because it has that same thing where it's like red up here and then another color down there. I don't know who thought that was good. Isn't it sad we're finally getting a Flash movie and then all anybody cares about are like our characters aren't even Flash related. That should tell you something. How was your Father's Day this weekend? Uh, Pretty boring. I was trying to finish this damn video, not the one I put up earlier, but this other romance video, and I couldn't because I was home alone for like one of the like 2 or 3 days out of the whole year, and I was like, oh my god, I can finish this script and then record this, and then right as I'm getting ready to finish it, they come back. So I have to speak with my inside voice. They end up going so realistic they miss the essence of superheroes being inherently unrealistic to a degree and more imaginative. Why would a woman fly around in a skirt? Like, if she's all the way up in the air, who the hell is looking up and is like, I can't wait to get a glimpse. Like it's, just they kill me with that. Everything has to be realistic. And again, it's like just when you look at DC or Marvel, just on a like prompt level of this is this universe, this is what it contains, and then you say, well, we want it to be realistic. People, a person with the right mind should laugh at you. Yes, don't objectify her, LO, even though in the TV series, Supergirl wore a skirt. Well, like I said, if they wanted to give it some tights, leggings, whatever, but it's like you guys gave her a costume that is so unfeminine and like it literally just it's someone actually said it looks like Captain Marvel's costume. Because I remember Miss Marvel's costume I thought was really hot. It was this like black leotard with these like boots that went all the way up the thighs. But that's not that's not part of the current Marvel trend. They have to not the current comic trend. They have to make all the chicks look like dress like men, and then if anyone wears anything hot, they're like, "Ugh, stop objectifying her." They can't just make their own new character that like wears all clothes. I'm like, for example, Batgirl throughout her entire existence as a superhero always wore stuff that covered her up, and nobody complained. But if other female characters have like something showing off whatever part of their body, oh my god, how could they do this? Yeah, I was never into Catwoman as much as other people. Because for me, DC likes to ship tease her and Batman too much, and they're stuck in this perpetual state of giving us bogus reasons for why they can't just become a married couple. So like it just gets kind of boring after a while. Like that was one of the reasons I really liked a lot of the 80s and 90s Spider-Man comics because he actually married his love interest. They were just a married couple. You know, no more ship tease. Like they actually changed the status quo for a long time. Until one more day came and ruined everything. So Joe Quesada and Dan Slott should never be allowed to write a comic book ever again. They should take the two of them and just they can do anything else, but don't write a comic. Yeah, Batgirl's a really interesting character. Like she was made for the comics because they were going to put her in the '60s TV show, and then she was kind of like just sort of Batman's sidekick until she got paralyzed and then became this intel gatherer for like the whole DC universe. Then she became Batgirl again, and she actually had her own villains that what was it Gail Simone made for her. So she's another really good character in my view. They might as well keep Catwoman as a villain to Batman. Yeah, I mean they have no problem doing that with Poison Ivy. You know, like you can have villains that aren't as evil as other ones that just conflict with the hero because they're what do you call it involved in like a conflict where the hero tries to foil their plan, but it's not some big global scale threat. Let's see what's here. Could you imagine bringing back the underwear over the pants look for the men like Superman and Batman? Why not? Those looks are iconic, and they still are around. You know, they're they were in comics all the way up until what the New 52. It's like you can say they look goofy, but remember in that same period where they had the underwear over pants look, that's when both of those characters became two of the highest selling American comics of all time. So those looks clearly didn't stop people from writing good stories. It is funny that it's like just a Flash movie, and then all people are doing is talking about other like characters that have nothing to do with Flash that are just in the film for some reason. Oh man, Michael Keaton's coming back, but this is a Flash movie. You don't, okay, whatever. To hell with Ezra Miller, I see. Brandon just vanished after he left that comment. He was like, "Forget it, I'm out of here." No, a lot of the villains for Batman are it's a way of saying it. They don't use them as well as they should, or they use them for like stupid stuff. Like I still think it was a mistake to have. Well, let me read what he's wrote right here. What's the point of giving the Flash a movie? Oh, don't say that. Like if Flash can have what is that? 400, 500 issues of his own comic, he can have a movie. If Venom can have a movie, Flash can have a movie. I just think it's dumb that they're doing Flashpoint as the first film because that's like this really big crossover, earth-shattering event. What's the point of giving Flash a movie? What's the point of giving Green Lantern a movie? I'd love a Green Lantern movie detailing the Sinestro story. Well, hey, you would have gotten that if that first one had actually made something. No, it's crazy because Green Lantern had like one of the most generic base sets of villains, and then I forget which writer it was. I think it might have been Jeff Johns. One of them came along and started introducing all these different Lantern Corps. You had the Star Sapphires, the Blue Lanterns, the Red Lanterns, the Orange Lantern, the Black Lanterns. Like it was crazy. No, if they could do a whole 6 or 9 movies on just Green Lantern stuff by itself, if they wanted to. Like out of all the superheroes for DC, Green Lantern probably has maybe my favorite mythos out of all of them, just because of all the different cores and members of each one and how they have these different backstories and place, specific roles. Once you butcher a movie once, it's hard getting a green light for the reboot. I just don't think it's a priority for Warner Brothers because when they don't want to make a sequel or something, they just don't make it. You can make a reboot and it doesn't have to take 10 years. So they're just not interested in doing another one. And that was really weird having him be the only founding member in the like Martian Manhunter is one of the original members too, but that's in the original continuity for the New 52. They replaced Martian Manhunter with Cyborg. So Green Lantern was the only one who hasn't appeared in the DC EU. It was the weirdest thing. It's like let's take this character with these very interesting powers, um, with like mythos that can just stretch out. I mean, again, like there's so many stories you can tell with Green Lantern. It's not even funny, and just completely ice him out so that we can rush and do our team up film. They didn't even add him in the Justice League. Yeah, one of the founding members doesn't even have a role in the movies. They threw him out like he was yesterday's garbage. No, it's so crazy because if you look at a lot of the trajectory for like the early 2000s, it makes it's like so weird that Green Lantern just fell out and they started using that franchise a lot less than the other ones. Like you had him in the Justice League cartoon. I know that was John Stewart, but you had a Green Lantern as one of the main characters. As actually, you could argue the main character because somebody pointed this out that he has in that show the most plots of any of the League members, and he fights both of the villains at the end of the season 1 and season 2 finale. You had the Green Lantern animated film that came out, in, I think it was 2009, and then you get this live action movie, and it like bombs, and then just nothing except comics after that. Like the fact that we're getting 2 Venom movies before a second Green Lantern is really depressing. Just because Green Lantern's been around way longer, but whatever. Pretty much, if you're a DC character and you're not Superman or Batman, you're screwed as far as like getting any media outside of comics. Like they'll make 20 Batman shows before they'll make one Aquaman show. They basically told him to kick rocks. Yeah. Well, again, they wanted to rush to their team up film. They told everybody to kick rocks. They told Flash to kick rocks, even if though he's in it, they still didn't bother telling us his origin, how he got his powers. And then now in his first solo film, he's gonna be sharing it with Keaton returning as Batman, which is just gonna, completely stole the spotlight from the supposed main character, and then Supergirl wearing some weird costume. Poor Flash. Jesus Christ. I'm gonna do an Envoy movie, and it's gonna have Tobey Maguire back as Spider-Man, and then who's another character a lot of people like? Just some random sidekick that is like really popular. I don't know, Bucky, and then they'd be like, "Oh, I can't wait to see the Envoy movie." Oh, are you excited to see Envoy being his own solo film? No, I want to see Spider-Man. It's Toby. He's coming back. Like that. That's they. If this film comes out and it's ever like just kind of like analyzed, years later, it should be like a masterclass case of how you make your main protagonist less appealing than other characters in their own movie. No, a lot of people are excited for Venom too. I read the some of the Donnie Coates run on Venom. I thought it was really good because he introduced the creator of the symbiotes, and then he what do you call it? Um, can't be hurt by the symbiotes because he controls them or controls some of them at least. It'll be really cool if they adapted some of that, but after Thor, they're probably going to do a reboot because for some reason superhero franchises can't go past 3 movies without a reboot, other than maybe like 2 or 3 times. That stuff is real goofy. Yeah, Sinestro could if they played it right, they could easily have him be like if I envision a Green Lantern trilogy, I would have Sinestro as the deuteragonist because you could have him in the first one be a Green Lantern, the second one, start becoming the founder of his own corps, the Yellow Lanterns or Sinestro Corps, whatever term you used to call them, and then the third one you can have him and Jordan finally face off against each other. Well, exactly. They do it with the comics too, constantly doing new releases to garner more sales. Yeah, but my thing is, you don't see it's not the same. It really is not. They do company relaunches. I know DC's rebooted their continuity a couple of times, but generally speaking, they tell more stories within the same continuity than here's 3 films reboot. People are obsessed with trilogies. I'm so sick of them. We did 3 of these, no more. I remember when the New 52 came out, I was so excited. I'm like, I'm gonna get some issue ones. And then you find out, was it like 4 years later, 5 years later, they just started all back up again. They redo another relaunch. Well, that's why I said superhero franchises. I'm aware there are movie series that go beyond 3. You have that with a lot of horror films, but I'm saying that for superhero movies, generally they do 3 and then they reboot. Like even with Fox's X-Men, even though it's more than 3, they don't really have a direct 4th installment because the 4th movie was Origins Wolverine, which is a prequel. It doesn't even have most of the X-Men in it. And they did some like weird half reboot with Days of Futures Past. And then they did some weird, what I'm talking about. It's just they rebooted even without actually calling it a reboot. No, they did 2 of those, and then they got overextended because before the second one came out, they're like, we're gonna do a 3rd one and a 4th one coming out in 2016 and 2018, and then we're gonna do a Venom movie and a Sinister Six movie and a Black Cat movie. It's like, what the hell? And after the second one performed below expectations, that's when the second one, actually, 700 million is still better than like Man of Steel, for example, which came out the year before. but it still wasn't like what you would expect from a film about the most iconic Marvel character. So they got with Marvel and started talking about the MCU, and the rest was history. Oh yeah, Venom. Forgot the new one is coming out with Carnage. I don't know how you forgot. They were supposed to put that thing back out in October, and they kept delaying it over and over. It's coming out in January. It's coming out in April. It's coming out in June. It's coming out in September. People started saying they didn't even have the movie filmed, that they were just lying to us. After 7, I just lost all understanding of the plot. No, I was just saying that it really sucks that the current Venom comics I thought were really good. That I have this really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach we're not going to see any of that stuff adapted ever on the big screen, because they're going to keep doing reboots, and it really sucks. They should have had Carnage in the first one, and that was the original plan. But then they picked Riot over him for some stupid reason. The director talking about, I like the way that gray contrasts with black. Like you took Venom's most iconic enemy, other than Spider-Man, who's a hero, uh, and replaced him with, like, I read the comic that Riot is in. He's not special. They have 5 symbiotes that come out of the Life Foundation, and he's just the gray, bulky one that, like, whatever. That was one of the dumbest decisions that Sony has ever made. Let's replace Carnage, the character people actually want to see, with this other variant of the symbiote. That just it was real stupid. And for Venom 3, they're gonna have Toxin, and they're gonna mess him up too. I was like, it's funny because a lot of times people say the movies don't have to be like the comics, and I agree to an extent. And this is like one of the few instances where I hope the movie isn't like the comics, because Toxin was the one, what was it, the 1000 symbiote, and he was the first one to actually be an ally to Spider-Man instead of an enemy, which was like unique compared to his father Carnage and his grandpa Venom. And then they just killed off his human host, and then they gave the Toxin symbiote to Eddie, which was like, what kind of roundabout thing is that? So I really hope they don't follow that same path of, you know, killing off an interesting character. Do you remember the Gambit movie they had in the works with Channing Tatum being heavily? Yeah, they had a whole bunch of X-Men Origins stuff, didn't go anywhere, like X-Men Origins Magneto. It's like, oh no, that's first classic. Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be. Tell you, the MCU is so funny when you consider that, like, all the properties that people wanted, like Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and X-Men, were sold off to other studios, and Marvel took the scraps that they still had to make the Avengers. It's like, let's do films on the superheroes that nobody cared to see on the big screen before. Yeah. So it's here. No, that romance video was so close. I was writing that script, like, oh my god, almost, and then here's my was like, damn it. I should finish it this week. I'm not going to make any promises though, because I really think it would be better if I had. That's what I hate about this stupid virus, because you can't do anything with recordings at this point. They make it very impossible to just do anything. Let's see what else is here. Let's see if I can find this. Okay. Brandon is real quiet. They might as well keep. Okay, I think I read everything. So I'll wait for somebody else to write something. It'll be real fun if you guys type something. And I do apologize if you can hear the noise. So let me know if you have anything left to say or anything else to say. I'm not about to end the stream or anything. I'm just waiting to see if people write something else. Can't wait to get demonetized. Somebody was cursing in the background. I remember this one guy who watches like, I noticed you have certain stuff you don't say when people are like, yeah, I'm trying not to, get duped out of my coins. It's like, oh, let me tour around saying this. Mm-mm. Yeah, that was very loud. Let me adjust it that way. I don't like the angle. And the chat really died. I'm gonna have to become a priest so I can minister some kind of last rites. We're gonna have an exorcist to bring the chat back. I remember this one guy was doing a stream and he had his he was like, "Can the chat hear me? Can the chat hear me?" And they were like, "I can hear you. I can." You just seeing people spam the same comment over and over. I just thought that was funny. Like a lot of people on here have these issues during streams, and they get so worried because they're used to just having stuff not work. Yeah, the DC Extended Universe is one of the strangest things I've ever seen. It's like you put out this cut of a film that everybody hated, and then it gets mostly positive reviews, and they're like, "No, we're not going to do anything else in that with that stuff." James, did you see Supergirl's costume for the Flash movie? That abomination. That that visual lack of spectacle. Yeah, I thought that thing was the most awful creation I've ever seen. No, I didn't. Is it that bad? Well, just type it in. Like, type in Flash movie Supergirl and you'll see it. And we're not asking you to watch a video. Just go on Google Images and you'll see it. I had no idea it would look like that. When I first saw it, I thought it was some kind of sick joke. Oh, this is a picture somebody photoshopped or planted on the internet to arouse our disgust or distaste. They put a 2-minute ad on my stream. Wow. There was this one time when I was on YouTube. I think I was probably in eighth or ninth grade. It was I'd say 2012, 2011, some long time ago. But there was an ad about, I forget which pope it was, but the ad was 8 minutes long, and it was like some weird conspiracy theory that he was still alive. It's like, what in the world? And I've never seen that since, so I know it wasn't something YouTube chose to retain longer than a short time, but it was just both its length and the topic being discussed. Like, they really paid to have this put on this website. And for some reason, I just sat there watching it because I'd never seen an ad like that on here before. You know, usually it's like, oh, here's a dating website, here's somewhere you can buy food, whatever. But it was just the most bizarre thing to hear this like uh what is it? It's like a detective sitting at a desk and they're like, we've assembled the clues and we remember when the Pope said this and when this person said that. It's like, what? But yeah, I just sat there watching. I was so intrigued. It's like, what is this? YouTube was different back in the day. So I know it's different. I remember. You think I joined here yesterday? I remember all the different stuff on here. I remember YouTube Friends. I remember the 10-minute time limit, and it was 15. But doesn't that look like something like a man would wear? And why are the shoes the same color as the rest of it, as the rest of the bottom part? Remember being featured on the YouTube front page was like the best thing in the world. Like, oh my God, my video's on the front page. More people are gonna subscribe to me. That used to really matter, and now it doesn't because there a lot of people avoid the trending tab. I don't know. It really seems like if you don't make a video that's about drama, um, or what's another example? Maybe just some like animation for something. You're not gonna get any views. Yeah, I told you a lot of the channels I know that have like 4 million subscribers, they usually can't crack 500,000 a video. Yeah, somebody made a video about a creator that was like following her around for 10 years. Thing has 2 million views in like 3 days. Like, I was like, what in the and you go to the rest of her channel, right? Because this you would think, oh, maybe it's just like PewDiePie, somebody that everybody knows. All of her other videos, 100,000, 40,000, 200,000. This video on drama, over 2 million views in 3 days. Matter of fact, I'm gonna go see if I can see what the current projection is on it. Okay, that video's been out for 1 week. It has 2.7 million views. No, it wasn't clickbait because she's talking trash about this other lady. And in the video, she talks trash about this other lady. So it's not clickbait. It's just an example of how it really does seem like if you don't lean into certain stuff, you're just screwed. Like the video before that, 251,000. And that was on drama too. It was about people stealing stuff. The video before that, 31,000. You see how that's like a really big drop? Like you go from 31,000, a video that was published a month ago, to 251,000, a video from 3 weeks ago, to 2.7 million on a video from a week ago. I guess it's just human nature. If there's a car crash on the side of the road, it's going to get your attention. Humans like drama. Well, I would say that too, but then it's like you go to WWE's page and they have matches that have 5 million views, 6 million views. So, it's like, what's your rebuttal to that? If we have stuff that doesn't involve drama, but just plain old entertainment that has millions of views, wouldn't that testify to the idea that it's possible for things that aren't drama related to get a bunch of views, but generally speaking, unless it's, I don't know, wrestling among high profile wrestlers or like a song, because the most popular videos on YouTube are songs, stuff where people just bop their heads over and over. So there are ways to still get a bunch of views, but it's generally stuff that that falls into one of those categories. Oh, I know. There was a guy that made a video on how to get views by like begging for attention. Where you take like for wrestling, you make a video where it's you talking for like 40 minutes about some wrestling match, right? And then you grab the picture of the wrestling match, and in the description you write who wrestled during the match, and then people land on your video like by mistake. They say you write a description this big and then come to your video. Because they think it's the actual wrestling match being uploaded, because there are wrestling matches on YouTube. They think it's the actual match. I remember his voice like, you write in description something this big, and you grab picture from actual wrestling match, you record video as long as match, and then people come looking, they land on your video by mistake. I just always imagine somebody sitting there actually writing like 8 paragraphs, like 3 paragraphs every video. Just this script in the description box. There's always a novelty essay. Yes. You really think I just made that voice up? I'm gonna show you how to get some views. In description, you write something this big. He did the same thing with his hands. You grab picture of actual wrestling match. You put title of wrestling match. And then when people come on YouTube looking for it, they land on your video by mistake. Oh my God. Oh, people call everything clickbait. If you use a thumbnail of something that's not you, they call it clickbait. I like the imitation of you acting like a woman who's crying. Well, they do a lot of crying. In the new romance video, you're gonna see the broad that she gets so depressed to the point of not wanting to speak to someone who did nothing to her over and over again. And then like when you confront her over the fact that she's purposely ignoring you for prolonged periods of time, she uses her mental health as a shield. I've been so depressed and I don't want to talk to you because I'm depressed. So there's a lot of voices you can employ with how these people act. I want to look at JMO's comment. I saw where he wrote on Twitter that Supergirl costume was hot. I was like, no, it wasn't. The actress might be, but the costume is not. He was like, "We need to embrace the pants era." So yeah, no, I'm good. I don't know. It seems like they're really pushing to have costumes for chicks as what do you call it? Like as masculine as possible, especially like the last 10 years. Yeah, JMO said that was one of the best costumes he's seen in live action in 20 years. I was disgusted. So I'm not gonna read anything else he writes. And I know it was you because he had that same picture of the three letters and the black screen. They love masculinizing the women these days. Well, it's funny because remember the equality myth. So if you notice in a lot of movies where there's a female villain against a male hero, usually the male hero doesn't actually overcome or beat the female villain directly. Can't have cleavage, thighs, legs, none of that. To be honest, the only Wonder Woman has a true feminine costume, and it sucks because, again, like I don't understand these people. Like even the new 52 costume for Supergirl, I didn't really like it that much, but it kind of was like Wonder Woman's where it's a leotard. It's like I would prefer that over this. Like why are they so damn afraid to show somebody's legs? Just like you had Johansson, the actress that played, Black Widow, she was like, "Oh, in Iron Man 2, I was sexualized." I'm like, why? Because you wore woman attire and men said you were attractive? Like, it's so weird, Like, that's why I said that I want to do the video called Being Straight is a Bad Thing because they've turned basic male attraction to chicks into like this like sinister plot. Like, these women wear costumes that men designed of them. It's like, I'm sorry that men like looking at attractive chicks running around in skimpily clad outfits. But again, I don't really mind that because you always had other female characters like Batgirl, like Catwoman most of the time that wore something that covered them up. So it's really weird. Yeah, we can't have Supergirl have long flowing hair and the skirt. Oh no, we have to cover her legs. It's like male's attraction is patriarchy and all that other BS. Yeah. I already told you if you really think about it, a lot of the stuff doesn't make any sense. Like what was I gonna say? It's like if these actresses sign on knowing they're wearing that stuff, they don't care because they're getting paid. Well, yeah, they act like chicks aren't attracted to men. Like they don't look at some man that has his chest on, and go, "Ooh, he's so hot." But again, nobody gets mad at them over that. They don't go, "You're objectifying him." Like, damn, she doesn't need to dress like she's on the cover of Playboy, but she can dress feminine. Yeah, but it's like anytime, dude, like her costume looks like something Superboy would wear. They are really afraid to just have a woman dressed like a woman in any of this stuff. Look at the way Superman and Captain America is depicted. It does. Because I told you that her costume looks like the Superior Spider-Man costume with an S instead of the where the spider is, and then blue and where the black is. If you've seen that costume, you know what I'm talking about, where it's red at the top, and then this like whole black outfit at the bottom, and that's what that reminds me of, except it's a blue version, and it's supposed to have a cape and a belt. Dude, they tried to mess with Wonder Woman's outfit too. They have instances where she was wearing pants, like when the new 52 was first announced. They had to go back and edit the drawing of her with the League because they had her wearing these blue pants, and they got rid of that when the actual comic came out. And like I said, they have chicks that wear costumes that cover them, like Donna Troy, for example, Wonder Girl. Uh, she wears usually, again, sometimes it's different, but she has this red outfit with these black boots where it's like red pants and like this like red shirt that I guess shows cleavage, but it's relatively tame as far as like, oh, she's wearing pants because it still is an attractive, design that, again, showing cleavage, I don't really think is that big of a deal. Whatever. Uh, and then the other alternative is she has this black outfit that like is kind of similarly situated, where it's a black shirt that shows cleavage and then a black pair of pants with some like gray boots. I know who you're talking about, stocking chick. I'd call her fish panty lady. Huh? Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm not reading your comments after that nonsense you wrote on Twitter praising this outfit as being femininity defined and how it was so amazing. It's like, no. I wonder how they would portray Selena Kyle, to be honest, in this day and age. Well, you'll find out with that. What's that movie called? The Batman. They're running out of titles. They just start recycling stuff because that was the name of a 2000s cartoon, and now it's going to be the name of the film. So you'll see how they portray her. They already race swapped her. She's being played by a black lady. How many Batman movies are we going to get in our lifetime? Well, we didn't have any for like, what was that, 7, 8 years between when Batman and Robin came out and then when the Batman Begins came out. So ever since then, we've had a movie with his name in the title that's live action at minimum every 4 to 5 years. So you're gonna see more of these because this is already supposed to be part of a trilogy. So that's at least 3 more, just without one even coming out yet. Like I said, if I had my way and you could like reverse certain stuff in time, I really do think if Ledger hadn't died, there would have been a really strong chance for The Dark Knight to be more than 3 movies. I think when he died, Nolan just was like, "Yeah, I'll wrap this up." Because I remember the excuse for why they didn't have Robin was that, "Oh, this is a young Batman and Dick Grayson is still a little boy." It's like, so you have him do stuff as Batman for 2 years or however long it was in that timeline, and then he gets framed for something he didn't commit on purpose, and then goes and hides up inside of his mansion for 8 years, and then he comes back out for a couple more adventures, and then fakes his death to go live with some woman that he just barely knows. It's the weirdest timeline out of all of them. You really think so? To be honest, Heath Ledger really did help take the Batman series next level. Dark Knight movie is iconic. Right, but it's confirmed that if he had not died, they would have used him in the third one. And it's hard for me to believe that Nolan would have wanted, because the whole point of it taking 4 years to get a third one was because he didn't want to make a third one. It's a joke, JMO. Relax. You actually do have a Twitter account. It's called Supergirl Fanatic. I'm not upset at you for having that name because I think she's a great character, but that costume is anything but decent. When it came out initially, I didn't understand the gravity of the movie. My homie was talking about how great the movie was. I didn't see it back then as a young teenager. No, me and my dad went to see it. I actually missed one of my cousins. It was her first birthday to go see that. It's like, oh well. And I got it on DVD. This guy said they need to go and like make a cartoon Dark Knight 3 that has like that's set like a year after the Dark Knight, with Joker and Riddler as the main villains, with like Robin as the like introducing Dick Grayson as Robin. I think that'd be really cool because it's not hard. like the whole point of wanting a cartoon film over a live action one is because generally speaking, it's easier for people to imitate Ledger's voice than his look. So if you can get somebody that can do the voice and then like make a design that resembles what he looked like in real life, it'd be a lot easier. Surely that would stand test of time as the greatest superhero movie. A lot of people consider it the greatest. I like Spider-Man 2 more than that, but it is what it is. I think I told that story before that Spider-Man 2 was the first movie I ever saw in theaters, or the earliest one I can remember seeing in theaters. And I think one of the first that I got the DVD of. Yeah, if you're from DC and you're not you're not Batman, you're screwed. As far as like depictions and other media is concerned. Because after watching the '89 film and then also Returns and the Dark Knight, I don't really even feel like I'm not saying no they should never make another Batman movie, but I mean it just feels like they do the same stuff over and over again. Like, oh, here's the origin, here's him fighting the same person he fought before in another movie, and then after three we're gonna reboot it, and then we're not gonna use the sidekicks because that's too scary. It's just I don't know. After if it keeps doing like the same steps over, because a lot of people say comics are repetitive because they never end, but you actually do have different things that happen during them. Um, like very rarely do they just tell the same story over and over. So it's kind of how I feel. I'll probably see the Batman, but I don't really I'm not really that excited for it because I already have almost half a dozen Batman movies I'm content with. So I'd be super in perhaps doing a live action of the Batman Beyond animated series or really yeah, well that's what I said earlier. That they should have Keaton come back for a Batman Beyond trilogy or film because Beyond had enough villains to do three movies about. Like imagine with Bruce Timm as like the writer, that would be so perfect, I swear. Like there are people who don't even watch Batman Beyond and they say that Return of the Joker is the best film, like that in Mask of the Phantasm. But again, like for some reason, the live action films really like avoiding the sidekicks, and I think that's a fatal flaw. Because Dick Grayson is probably the best. I'd say he's in my top 10 favorite superheroes. Like he's one of the few that's actually grown and changed over time, and like had most of his stuff still intact as far as like being Batman's longest running sidekick, and then you know becoming his own hero and leading teams and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know why they don't just. I don't know. For some reason, a lot of those, especially with DC, they have a real aversion to sidekicks in live action stuff. That's not like CW or anything like that. They have a real distaste for having like someone under the hero. It really sucks, and it goes back even longer than the movies because I remember with Batman animated series, they had to like make a requirement for Robin to be in every episode because they weren't using him that much. And that was the whole point of season four being retooled to like have the sidekicks in each one. I just thought that was so crazy. MCU are great with the sidekicks. Just look at Spider-Man, basically Iron Boy, and playing second fiddle to, yeah, well, like I said, that was the dumbest thing in the world. If you want to have somebody play second fiddle to Iron Man, you should have just had to be War Machine, because a lot of people forgot that War Machine did become Iron Man briefly in the what was that, the 80s? Long time ago. Imagine DC makes of like extended universe of films and Batman's film rights with another company, and then they have him as the sidekick to Green Lantern, like it's Bruce following Hal Jordan's like, okay, Mr. Jordan, okay, can I polish your ring? Can Alfred get you anything to eat? And somebody didn't understand the parallel. The parallel is that Green Lantern and Iron Man are like, they're superheroes that people know to an extent, but they're not as anywhere near as famous as Spider-Man or Batman. So that's the point that like it's a character who's more famous and like more defined as someone that people know, playing second fiddle to a lesser known character. No, but DC in general just has like a really, like outside of comics, a weird aversion to sidekicks. And it sucks because, like I said, I think Supergirl, you could argue, is a more interesting character than Clark. I wouldn't say she's more iconic. I'm not going to die on that hill, but I find her to be very well contrasting with him as like the more violent, less refined fighter that he has to like rein in. But they won't use her in any of the films other than the Flash movie, which we don't even know if that's going to be the same, if that's Kara or some other version. Uh, and then it's the same thing with the Batman, where we've seen no sign that they'll actually finally start using Robin again. They haven't used him in the Batman movie in 20 years, but like it's sad that they're so afraid to like use any superheroes besides the main ones. It's really goofy. Well, that was the whole point. Okay, let me read what you wrote. It helps adding depth to the character when you usually introduce sidekicks and whatnot. That's the whole reason Robin exists, because what was it, Bob Kane, Bill Finger? They didn't want like the point of having someone with Batman when he was doing his missions and whatnot was so it was someone he could talk to and explain, this is why I'm doing this, because they thought it was weird for him to just be explaining in thought bubbles all the stuff he's doing versus, oh, he's explaining this and providing exposition to the reader and also training his sidekick. It's the whole reason Dick Grayson was even created, so that they could have somebody with Batman that he would tell and instruct on why he's doing this. A lot of people forget that Robin was made before Alfred was. Alfred was created several years later and was retconned into always being with the Wayne family. Yep, exactly. Robin was basically there for the readers to understand Batman's thought process and exposition character, which was done extremely well. Like I said, all these superheroes series have this really bad problem of like, especially the stuff that's out of the comics, where they just don't use characters as much as they should. In the latest Mortal Kombat movie, they tried doing that with the main character, but it didn't come off as well as they intended, judging by some of the reviews. Well, you know how reviews are. People hate on everything. They had this one lady, I don't know if it was a lady, but it was somebody that gave Infinity War a bad review, and they were like, characters are just thrown in. It's like the whole point of the 20 plus movies that preceded this one are that so they can introduce characters who, when you then see together, you already know the motivations of. And that was the goofiest review I've ever seen for any film. It's like, why the hell do you think they're making this after 10 years, all this other stuff, so they could set all the pieces there so that when it happens, it just plays out? Oh my god. Yeah, the point I was making is that reviews tend to just be all over the place. Now, the only problem I had with Batman Beyond was that we never got to see. I mean, we saw it in comics, but not in the actual show. What happened to Nightwing? Yeah, it was a really good. It was just a very unique attempt at doing something different. Because the whole prompt for that show is we want a teenage Batman, and Bruce Timm and the rest were like, no, we're not. We're not going to make Bruce Wayne a teenager. We're going to make our own mythos, and they did really well. Like the whole reason for even wanting a Beyond movie is because we've never seen that on the big screen. And whenever you put out a film in live action, you're going to get more people to watch that than a cartoon. But because it's something different, they don't want to bother with this. Want to keep telling the same story over and over. I actually saw people who were saying they want an MCU Miles Morales film, and I'm like, name one villain that he has. Like, just people they kill me with some of this stuff, some of the thoughts they have. The only reason anybody likes Miles is from the Spider Verse movie. Outside of that, no one ever read any comics with him. Nothing, because all he is just Spider Man with a different paint job. And I really do like Brian Michael Bendis as a writer. Like I like his original Ultimate Spider Man run. Like it was like 160 issues or something. Um, but outside of that, he's just been going down a slope of ridiculousness. He's still nowhere as bad as like Dan Slaughter, Casada. Those two are the worst menaces. It's like the two of them and Avi Arad, and then maybe like three other people I can't name it. They're like a real life Sinister Six. Like they're actively screwing up different Spider-Man stuff. It's really incredible. All those villains working together. All right, does anyone have anything else left to say? I think we've talked ourselves out, or what? That was funny. Brandon's like, "What's the point of a Flash movie?" It's like, well, I mean, it's supposed to show an origin that we've never seen before because we've never had a Flash film before, and instead they're doing some kind of like weird crossover event. And like I said, Flashpoint in the comics, I like it, but as a first film, it's just so goofy. There's just certain stuff you can't do unless you set up pre-existing material before that. I guess he may have been asking, "Is Flash big enough for his own?" Well, again, my thing is, if Venom can have a movie, why can't Flash? They make 9 Batman movies. Nobody has a single problem with it, but they make a Flash one. What's the point? It's like, come on. Yeah, you realize that Venom is literally just a more aggressive, angrier version of Spider-Man, right? Like I like him, but he's nowhere near as original as Flash. Flash has his own rogues gallery. He has had hundreds of issues of his own comic. He's much closer to he's a founding member of the Justice League, what arguably was the most iconic superhero team of all time before the Avengers, the first film came out. Uh, so like I don't understand what other accolades does he need. Well, that's my point. It's like you really want me to believe more people know Blade than Flash? Like, are you kidding me? The only character who can run fast that might be as known as Flash is maybe Sonic, and even that's dubious at best. I guess it's because Venom is a popular. So is James. You want me to believe a character who's been running monthly for the last 50 years is not popular? A character who is part of arguably the most iconic superhero team of all time's founding roster is not popular, really? And I shouldn't even be reading your comments because I know you didn't watch episode 47. But no one was asking for a Flash movie. That's my point. How do you know that? They've been trying to make one of those for years. You can go look it up, the development history of a Flash film. That's been going for 20 years. Same thing with Wonder Woman. I don't know what you mean about no one was asking for. Nobody was asking for a Venom movie. By that logic, that thing sat in development hell for 11 years. They first greenlight that back when Spider-Man 3 came out. And it just sat in the cooler, nothing happening. And then in like 2016 or 7, like, all right, forget this. Let's finally do this thing. And they pulled it out. Nobody's asking for a Craven movie. He's still getting one with Quicksilver playing him. You know, just because you don't actively want it doesn't mean somebody else isn't interested. Nobody asked for a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It still was made. Dude, the only Guardian of the Galaxy anybody knew before that movie came out was Rocket Raccoon, who only became popular about maybe 3 or 4 years before that film came out with the new volume of the comic. In DC, I would argue on the superhero side, not counting the villains, Flash is top 5 behind Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and he perhaps is number 4. Really, yeah. Like some iteration of Flash has been running in DC for the last almost 60 years continuously. Like, look, Envoy, you know that they cancel comics that don't sell, or at least sell close to what their ideal number is. You don't run as a comic for decades if you're not popular. Like it just doesn't happen. But you're not going to convince me that Guardians of the Galaxy is more popular than Flash, especially not before that film came out. So, I mean, it's like what. It's just like with Fantastic Four. There was a person who made a video. It was like, I don't know why they're making a new one. Nobody liked the others. Like that was Marvel's first family. They were they were the first superhero team made by Marvel. They were so popular that their rights were sold to another company. That didn't happen with Avengers. Didn't happen with Iron Man, Captain. None of them. It was Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, X-Men that were sent to other companies because they were liked and believed enough in to make for successful live action movies. Can't believe you guys would talk down the Flash like that. The most iconic speedster in comics. You're gonna start talking about. I don't see the point of making. I was like, what? Really? He can have a show on CW, but he can't have a movie. He can have comics going for 50 years, but he can't have a movie. Like, you want me to believe Black Panther is more iconic than Flash? You can literally take any Marvel property that's not Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and then maybe like the big 3 Avengers and Hulk, and I'll say Flash is more popular because he is. Like we can actually go and prove that with numbers of comic sales that are publicly posted online. Yeah. Elektra doesn't have a rogues gallery. She hasn't had a comic running for decades. She doesn't have her own TV show. Like, who gets to decide who deserves a movie and who doesn't? Who made you the decider of that? If someone wants something to happen, they should be allowed to make it. That's how I feel. If you said 20 years ago that Iron Man would get 3 movies before Flash, people would be so yeah, because nobody cared about Iron Man. That's why his rights stayed with Marvel. Nobody wanted to make a film about that character. There was one attempt back in the 90s, and then they stopped it. Hell, the only Marvel character that Marvel Studios had the rights to that had a movie before the MCU was Captain America. He was the only one that came just a little close to those other 3 properties I mentioned. It was him and Hulk. They were more popular than Iron Man and Thor. Iron Man was probably the most least popular of them because when the 2008 film came out, he was a villain as far as like, in Civil War, because that comic had just recently been published. So he wasn't even that popular as a character, period. Still got a movie. We can get an Elektra movie before we get a Flash movie. It's just like when people would compare Wolverine and Batman. I was like, Wolverine is a member of X-Men that is always going to be more tied to that team than to being his own solo property. Batman is more well known as a singular entity than being part of the Justice League because he has a property by himself is more popular than the Justice League. I think a lot of folks just don't know about what was popular prior to the creation of MCU and the DC franchise movies post Dark Knight. It was Superman, Batman, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man. Those were the juggernauts of the comic book industry. Yeah, those are the only ones that were getting films and sequels before the MCU and DCEU came out. But that's why it like really kills me that, like Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Flash, all of these characters had attempts to make a movie about them that just didn't go anywhere for years. But there were still more attempts to make those than most of these Marvel properties. Because all 4 of those characters I just mentioned were all popular in literally everything from Marvel except those 3 that you listed there. So I said, people don't even think when they write, so they just type something. Flash isn't popular enough to have a movie despite running for 50 or 60 years continuously, but Guardians of the Galaxy is, even though nobody knew who the hell they were until that film came out. I didn't even know they were making a Flash movie until you told me about Supergirl's costume. Well, look, I'll concede that you might not have heard of it, but you know who Flash is. Literally, when Deadpool came out, one of my teachers asked me, is he a superhero or what? Like, that's my point. Flash was still a much more well-known character than the majority of stuff Marvel's made films about. Before Avengers, the movie came out, nobody talked about that team. They had one little garbage cartoon in the 90s, and that was it. The most you saw of them were like some of their characters would be in Ultimate Alliance, the video game. And not to mention the villains too. Look at Ledger. He really took Joker to the mainstream. Joker movie we got about 2 years ago wouldn't have happened, say 15 years ago. Well, that's because they usually don't make movies about villains. Like we can't even get multiple movies about heroes. So, and again, if that's just a standalone thing, it's cool. But I mean, Joker's arguably the most iconic supervillain ever. Like I wouldn't necessarily. I'd say Ledger's performance was great, and it's been like a model of inspiration for other people. Because I know Killmonger was inspired by Ledger's performance, but that might not have been the best example because, like, I can actually prove Joker is either one of or the most popular villain of all time in comics. It's like X-Men and Fantastic Four are kind of like waning in popularity, but people still admit that Magneto and Doctor Doom are some of the best villains ever created. Certainly much more well known than villains for Avengers or any of the individual members of that group. How many Iron Man villains can you name? How many Captain America villains can you name? How many Thor villains can you exactly? No, Envoy, we've actually had like polls and like we have empirical data that says Joker is one of the most, if not the most iconic villain ever made. It's him, Magneto, Doctor Doom, Lex Luthor, and then like sometimes Green Goblin and like Doc Ock. Yeah, Manny says none. It sucks too because as someone that reads comics, you know, like again, the point I was making is it's so insane to watch people act like just because a character's never had a movie before, they don't deserve one or they shouldn't get one. You know, like I just think that's really sad. I wouldn't say leave a lot to be desired, but they're not considered great or iconic or interesting. Speaking of Dr. Max, it's surprised they didn't push him more given how iconic he is. I know he's tied to Fantastic Four. That is the reason why they can't use him because they didn't get the rights for him until very recently. Doctor Doom is one of the best villains made in anything ever. A villain who just wants to rule the world and like has his own country and like that is because it's like it's in somebody on I forget who it was, but someone made this point. They said it's not illegal to just want to rule the world. He's a very multi-layered, complex character. And he's a big part of why Fantastic Four had the rights sold to another company before Marvel started making all these films on different characters that on their own wouldn't have been able to. Like if Iron Man just existed as those three movies, that would have been rebooted by itself probably like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Because again, the MCU is based on B and C list characters, other than maybe Captain America. Captain America actually has some really good comics. Like, who could forget the first appearance where he's punching, you know who in the I can't say it because I'm gonna get the monetized. A certain leader of an evil regime. No, Iron Man probably has my favorite villains out of those like core Avengers. He's got Titanium Man, Crimson Dynamo, MODOK, Mandarin. Who else? That lady that wears that mask. I don't think no one is saying he doesn't deserve one. No, this guy was like, "What's the what did he say?" Uh, well, look, I'm only like responding to what you said because you were like, Venom's a popular character. So is Flash. If they do a poll of like top, because sometimes people consider Venom a superhero. If they do a poll about top superheroes, Flash is always higher than Venom because Venom will never escape, even though he's come a long way, being a replacement costume for Spider-Man that people didn't like the design of, at least not as much as the red and blue. So they made that costume the concept for a villain. Now he disappeared after writing that. He wrote that sacrilege. I was like, are you serious? It's like somebody always writes something crazy. What's the point of giving the Flash a movie? What's the point of giving Batman a movie? Like seriously, what's the point anymore? Haven't we seen like every villain he has on the big screen at least once, except for like what Mad Hatter? Flash is great. If like again, if Black Panther can get a movie, I don't see any reason Flash can't have one. And it sucks too because Flash has like these really interesting. Like it's not just running fast. When he travels at a certain amount of speed, it actually has consequences. And his villains come together to counter his speed. Like he probably has. I'd say like his villains make the most sense being in a film together. And then there's Professor Zoom, who is just like a crazy homicidal evil Flash. Dude, Professor Zoom is like the Goku Black to Flash before Goku Black even existed. He's great. Venom is a popular character. So is literally everybody else. We'll just have to see how well it does in the box office because the only reason why Black Panther is getting a sequel is because how well it did sales wise. Well, listen, I'm not here to talk about sequels or anything such as that. I'm not going to tell you that this movie is going to make loads and loads of money. But like I said, before Aquaman came out, if you told me that would make $1 billion, a character that people used to say was a joke, I would have thought you were crazy. Like, I wish people would stop trying to pretend that just because they don't know what a property is or they don't read it or whatever, it can't make money. One of DC's lesser popular superheroes made more money on his film than Superman versus Batman. That should tell you something. Oh, remember the time when people would laugh at Aquaman, literally would use him as insults, late 90s or early 2000s sitcom shows. It sucks too, because I like him. Like I read the Jeff Johns New 52 run. And like ever since the New 52, they've been using his supporting cast, like they use Mira a lot more. Like I just think it sucks that again, a lot of the DC heroes are iconic and they just because they're not represented that much in other media, like on the big screen as much as Marvel, people treat them like jokes. And again, Marvel is making a movie on every goddamn body, and like people, they think that's okay. But then if DC makes a movie on one of its more iconic heroes, it's like, what was the point of this? This is gonna fail. Nobody knew who Guardians of the Galaxy were before 2014. Not a single soul. Only reason I knew who they were is because they were in the Avengers cartoon, and Rocket Raccoon was in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So by the way, the second game out of that was all X-Men. That should tell you that how like things have changed because it used to be X-Men as the premier Marvel team. No, Magneto and Doctor Doom are the best villains Marvel ever made. And they're a big reason why those properties are so we're so well sought after. Oh, now I understand what you're saying. They should make the movie because you don't know how well it's going to do. And Flash, a popular character, why doesn't he have a movie? Yeah, that's my point. That characters from Marvel that no one ever heard of, like Captain Marvel or just Carol Danvers, period, have a movie. But then a character who's been running with an ongoing comic for 50 or 60 years, like Flash or Aquaman or Green Lantern, doesn't get one. Really? I told you, Black Panther, the comic has been canceled 7 times, and he still was able to get a movie because people weren't buying it. They just kept, canceling. Like, all right, we'll just have him be in Avengers. By the way, you know what comic Black Panther first appeared in, right? Since we want to sit here and act like other Marvel properties are not as big as the ones in the MCU. You know what comic he first appeared in was, right? Yep. Homeboy said the Fantastic Four. And then Wolverine's first appearance was in Incredible Hulk, and Punisher's first appearance was in Spider-Man. Well, listen, I'm just saying you can make a really good case that Black Panther is one of the least popular Marvel heroes. Like, Iron Man didn't get canceled over and over again. Thor didn't get canceled over and over again. Captain America didn't get canceled over and over again. Hulk got canceled once and then came back and stayed. X-Men didn't get canceled over and over again. The only one that got canceled where they're on like volume 8 is Black Panther. It's not a coincidence. Flash didn't get canceled over and over again. He got canceled during the Jay Garrick era that's the one that has that like white hat with the like jeans or whatever. And then after that, they just kept running Flash. Just going and going and going. That's part of what made him more popular, to be honest, James, the racial element, which I understand. But again, he's another Marvel property that when I see get a movie and Flash doesn't have one, I'm like, well, I don't really need to be lectured on who's important enough to get a movie. How many Black Panther villains can you name? I'll wait. Yeah, I like Jay Garrick. I'm just saying that was the only instance where Flash got canceled. Black Panther's been canceled 7 times. Even when Flash died, didn't cancel his book because he died during the Barry Allen version died, and he was gone for just like Green Goblin for 20 years, and he was replaced by Wally West. Gotta sit here and tell me about who's popular enough to get a movie. What a sick thing. Think of the money MCU has left on the table since they're not really gonna go on all out with X-Men Fantastic Four. Man, that'd be crazy in the future. Yeah, X-Men by itself could be and we already saw that with Fox, its own cinematic universe. They have so many Days of Futures Past, Dark Phoenix saga, Avengers versus X-Men. Hell, the whole Astonishing X-Men run by itself that has it had Beast, Kitty, Cyclops, Emma, and Wolverine. That could be 3 movies just alone. It's business. I think that's what get in the way of some movies being made. Well, it's development hell. Sometimes someone writes a script that one person really likes, and another person comes around and throws it away. Like for example, Batman Forever initially was going to have Tim Burton direct with Michael Keaton as Batman again, and then they just said forget it, and got a different director and a different actor to play Batman. So if one person doesn't agree with what's going on, they just replace it, or they can. There's a lot of just factors that go into this stuff. Let's see what else is here. It's a business. Says you're right, but during that time, I never heard anybody saying I want to. Come on, James. Why do you guys do this? I don't remember anyone saying they wanted an Iron Man movie, or a Captain America movie, or a Thor movie, or a Black Panther movie, or a Doctor Strange movie. or a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, or an Avengers movie. Like two can play at this game. We can, if you're gonna tell me that you never heard anyone saying they want a Flash movie, I can literally say the same thing about damn near any other superhero that exists except maybe Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. Just because you didn't hear somebody say they wanted it doesn't mean that people didn't want it. I never heard someone say they wanted an Aquaman movie and it still made $1 billion. Never heard anyone say, I can't wait to see Aquaman. And then it came out, whole bunch of people went to go see it. Well, that's my point that, like, well, I mean, in general, I don't even talk about movies anyway. So have you ever even heard me say, oh, man, I hope they make another Spider-Man or another Batman? Like, you can say that about, if you say that about Flash, you can say it about all the other properties too. I never heard my dad say that he wanted an Iron Man movie. When that came out, he went to go see it. Two can play at that game. I never heard anybody say they wanted an AJ Envoy movie. And then when it comes out, people are going to go see it. They're going to see this man steal pictures of women to use as avatar. And all the women are going to come together and try to fight him. They're going to have the female 5 versus Envoy at the end of the movie. I never heard anybody say they wanted a Dragon Ball movie, like a live action one when it came out. It still ended up getting made. And now nobody wants one again after that. Like I said, I understand what you're saying, so I get it. It comes down to just understanding how big these characters were in the comics in a hypothetical context. Trust me, Flash is a big player. Hulk is too, of course, given Lou Ferrigno and the classical depictions of Hulk. Yeah, but it's like you don't get a movie in 2003 during an era where comic book films really are still not that big of a thing, and a TV show before that if you're not a popular character. Nah, you guys are killing me with this stuff. Dude, almost all of Marvel properties nobody ever heard of before they had a movie. Like when I was a kid, the only Marvel characters I heard people talk about, and again, it's like a big gap between certain ones, like Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Hulk, Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, and most of those still didn't have a movie until only in like the last 10 years or so. And like I said, all these films sit in development hell. They were trying to make a Spider-Man movie since the 80s with Sandman and what was it, Electro as the main villains. Well, yeah, those are the 3 highest selling superheroes in US comics. So that would be accurate. Because all those people that say they like Black Panther, they don't buy his book. Man, I remember when I was a little kid, I used to order comics off the computer. I used to have Big Time, Spider Island, all these different little events. They had the Marvel Masterwork series where they would like reprint the early Lee Ditko era issues. No, that's the funniest part, that just because you have a movie that a lot of people go to see doesn't mean your comic sells well. I just think if Marvel can make movies on like most of the characters they make a film on, most of the like big DC characters at least should get one. Like if Guardians of the Galaxy can get a movie, we should definitely have like at least a Flash film by now. That's crazy. No, I contacted your sister. She told me that you didn't see it. She saw your history on YouTube, and that video was never played. And if you did see, you didn't even hit the like button, so we know for a fact that you didn't see it. But then again, at the time, Marvel is huge right now. Well, like I said, things can change quickly. You do realize that just 20 years ago, Marvel was getting ready to file for bankruptcy, right? That's the whole reason they sold those properties to other companies. Like you know that, right? That in the 90s, Marvel almost went bankrupt. You get why that's crazy, that this company that almost was on it, that was on its last leg 2 decades ago, now is just sitting on top of the world. So I'm just saying things can change really quickly. No, there should be like 3 Green Lantern movies. There should be like 3 Flash ones, 5 Wonder Woman ones, 10 Superman ones. Funny how things change. Yeah. But that's why when someone says, like, this is just the way things is with when it comes to a lot of this entertainment and what sells, like, but I don't believe that. Like things can transform quickly. Like, I'm sure if you had said 20 years ago that a comic from Japan about a bunch of pirates is going to become higher selling than any American comic and like Dragon Ball, people would have thought you were crazy, but it ended up happening. No, they kill me with that. And we're gonna end up having to do a whole video series on Flash, like all the good stories that he has that nobody's ever gonna know about. There's a lot of like comic stories that I just hate that they've never been adapted. Like there's this one issue where like Venom is stalking Spider-Man and he gets him to meet him on this island and they have like a fight to the death, and Spider-Man fakes his own death by putting his costume on a skeleton and having like a causing like an explosion. I was like, oh, that would be so cool to see in a movie, man. Like out of all their fights, that's my favorite one because it's so intense, and it's like, it's one of the reasons I like the character so much because he has intelligence along with the powers. Like, oh my god, why can't that be in the film? Not to mention, even prior to Dark Knight, while he was still popular, Batman did lose a lot of. Yeah, Batman and Robin killed the film franchise until Begins came out. There was a what 8-year gap between movies. You don't remember Batman Unchained? The movie that was going to have Scarecrow and Harley Quinn as Joker's daughter? Or the Robin spinoff they wanted to make, or the Catwoman spinoff they wanted to make? which was the whole reason they even left her alive in at the end of Returns. No, I really think Tim Burton could have made a really like interesting. Just I would have loved to have seen him do a third one and even more at that point. It really sucks that Returns got the reception that it did. It's too dark. Damn. He lost a lot of steam. It was the same thing with Superman. Superman 4, like they say it still has effects on movies today. Like first Returns comes out and it tries to like retcon the third and fourth one. And then they cancel doing a sequel to that. And then they do Man of Steel. And then they make some weird hybrid sequel slash Batman Origins. I don't know, whatever. And then, you know, Cavill isn't even doing anything anymore. Now they're talking about a black Superman. So it's just like, well, James, he was big in the 90s with the Tim Burton flicks, but after the early and mid 2000s, he did lose a bit of traction. I'm just saying that you can look at other, you know, like out of those big three superheroes, the only one that hasn't had like a franchise killing film as far as where like they don't have any more movies for like 6, 7, 8 years of Spider-Man. Because people like to trash Spider-Man 3, but it still made the most out of the three of them, almost 900 million. And then they were like pissing Raimi off, so then they made the reboots, and the second one got 700 million, and they just said, "All right, well, we're gonna go with the MCU now." This was during the period where X-Men and Spider-Man were all the rage with the Tobey Maguire trilogy. Hugh Jackman becoming very popular as Wolverine. I tell you, I've seen people on wrestling forums, they were talking about Benoit was going to be Wolverine just because his name was that in wrestling. Wait, did Envoy say if he saw 47? I don't think he did. Uh, yeah, he did. I don't see. You didn't see it, okay? Because then you would get why he was getting referenced. Didn't take too long to reboot it, neither, because it came back in 2005. Yeah, but like I said, you can point to where there have been unsuccessful films for these bigger, the like the biggest supers, all of them, right? And then they still get to come back and try again. That's why the Green Lantern thing is really depressing, because I see a character who has loads and loads of interesting stories being stuck with a TV show that got canceled after one season for the dumbest reason I've ever heard, and a movie that, you know, did not make back what it cost. We're gonna take the that Green Lantern movie and we're gonna put it with the Ghostbusters from what was that 2016 as like films that were gonna start a franchise that just killed themselves. It just imploded. Oh, that's so sad. One thing that helps Superman stay a bit relevant but doesn't get talked about much is Smallville. People don't talk about that, at least from my perspective. Yeah, I only saw a few episodes of Smallville. I just always remember the theme. But you know, it couldn't you say it's the same thing with Flash, where he has a show on TV, and then you know that might end up helping introduce him to more people? Because I know a lot of people who say that Batman the animated series is what got them into the character. So a lot of times, a character's popularity is determined by being given opportunities that are outside of the comics, because most people don't read comics. Um, I feel like that's lost on a lot of people. Do Marvel will make a movie on anybody? Shang-Chi? Like I know people who read comics didn't know who that was because he's such a like. If Iron Man was a B tier character, Shang-Chi is like a D or an F tier. He's all the way at the bottom. It's the same thing with most of the villains too. Nobody talked about Thanos before Infinity War came out. Exactly, who's that? That's what I said when I was like, what? It just needs to be understood. Some characters have down points in movies, but they do well in animated series, do well in comics, but then not movies. Yeah. And like I said, the thing that sucks is that most characters aren't given the chances that Batman has. Like there are multiple Batman films that people say are not good. But then, they keep making more and trying and being allowed to attempt it again. That's why I said it just sucks that like other characters, they have to hit it right out of the park or they get left in the dust. We also didn't talk about Doctor Strange. LOL, no one really knew him either, yet he got a movie. And that's my point that like I know Flash is more popular than the character like that. So that's why I said it's really weird that he's just been in development hell for so long. Like, just here's my point. Wonder Woman's been around 50 years longer than Deadpool, and they both have 2 movies. I was like, what? You don't see why that's like why something is messed up about that. Like, how does that happen? Where that's off? Like, really? It is funny for Sonic. Nobody even talks about the games anymore. They're like, oh, I can't wait for Sonic 2. Oh, the game? No, the movie. I always find that so sad when like a character originates in one format and then nobody cares about that format anymore. It's just really sad. I don't know. DC's got a lot of just good characters that they like get overlooked. James says, I guess. I think the only reason why he got his own movie was because he was going to be a big factor in the Avengers movie, like Infinity War. But couldn't you say the same thing about Guardians of the Galaxy? Because the first one introduces an Infinity Stone, as well as the team that ended up playing a role in Infinity War, and then Rocket by himself was a big player in Endgame. Him and Nebula. Or give me a second. People call you and they don't even say anything. It's always something weird that happens during streams. They're like, what the hell? Hey, we're gonna get an Envoy movie before we get a third Hulk film, or I guess a second MCU one because of that stupid stuff with Universal. Dude, Doctor Strange doesn't have any good villains other than Dormammu. Like the only Marvel characters with the Rogues Gallery that's worth a piss are like Spider-Man, X-Men, and then maybe Avengers. Oh, and Fantastic Four because they have Doctor Doom, Galactus. They're. Oh yeah, definitely. It seems like MCU took more risk with their movies. To be honest, and again, DC did release Birds of Prey. But that's why I'm more frustrated with DC because Marvel had they couldn't use Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and X-Men when they started, but DC had everybody, and they just They can only put out one movie a year, which was really dumb. And then they go to this team up film instead of doing individual releases for their various characters. Hey, you're not missing much. They have some weird green thing that people are saying is going to be in the second one. Dude, even his rogues gallery makes Thor's look more appealing. Like Thor has Enchantress, this like magic woman that's interested in him romantically, but it's like a Catwoman type thing. He's got Hela, who was in Ragnarok, but she's actually Loki's daughter. Um, he's got what was it, the Butcher? They're like even he has more villains. That's crazy. But anyways, I think I'm gonna get off of here. We've gone for enough for this could be a movie in and of itself. It really is amazing how big MCU got without Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four. It would be like DC not having Superman and Batman. Well, no, that's different because Superman and Batman make up the core, like the mainstream team of Marvel is Avengers, even though X-Men is more popular or was more popular. Um, Doing a DC universe where you make Justice League movies without Superman and Batman would not work. It would still make money, but it's still that's why I said they're not that's not the best analogy because they're core members of the main group from their universe. Like Spider-Man was a reserve member of the Avengers for it's like 20 years, and then he was part of New Avengers. So they've gone most of their time without having them. That's why I was pissed off about Quicksilver in Age of Ultron because he's been with that team for 40 years and they just completely neglected him and threw him out like a piece of garbage to focus on his sister, who loved him so much that she never mentions him before between Age of Ultron and WandaVision. It's the only person that was with you for years, and then like you don't mention them at whatever. Well, it seems it all comes down to getting a good team to come together to make a movie because there was supposed to be a Flash movie a long time. You could say that, hey, you could say the same thing about every other property that we mentioned here. They wrote the first script for Wonder Woman in '96. That film didn't come out until 21 years later. Same thing with Aquaman. They just lingered in development hell, swirling back and forth. And it took 11 years for Venom to come out. Just all they do is this. Hell, the only reason Spider-Man came out relatively early compared to these other things in 2002 is because they spent over 10 years trying to get that made. Hello? I'm so tired of these stupid automated calls. It's so annoying. Anyways, I'm about to get off of here. Have a good day. I'll stream again on Saturday as usual. I'll try to put up the romance video this week. I'm not making any promises. I hope you enjoyed the new episode of the show. That's something else that's been in development hell. So see you later.